Before we get started with Spring Framework, let us understand what is a framework, what is the role played by the framework, how we can use it for the development of application, and what are the advantages of it. See, as we see the definition here, the frameworks are the large bodies of pre-written code. That means it is a pre-written code which is readily available for us, and the developer need to add only the code which is related to the business logic or domain specific code. See, in case of a framework, the framework controls the main flow of execution. The framework takes the control, and first the framework executes, and wherever it is required, there only it will invoke the code which is written by the application developer. So, as a developer, how do you interact with the framework? Means by creating an object of the class which is available in framework and making the calls, method calls to the objects which are in the framework. This is the way. And even through callbacks. That means you provide some callbacks to the framework, and based on the need, the callback gets called. So how the framework is provided to you means, as already known, framework is a large bodies of classes. So how do you bundle the multiple classes? You can bundle using the .jar file. Okay. So generally, a framework may come in as a single .jar file or multiple .jar file. What is jar file? It is a Java archive file. As a part of core Java, you might be already familiar with what is a jar file. So in case you want to use any framework, you have to just use the jar files which are available by using Maven. So what are the popular frameworks in Java language? See, the popular frameworks are, one is Hibernate, Spring, Struts, and many others. What is Hibernate? Hibernate has a specific purpose. It is used for interaction with the underlying database. See, Hibernate, we call it as a ORM framework. That means it maps the given object with the underlying database table. So whenever you are saving the data, generally what we do, you might have seen in the JDBC, right? You take each field, you put it in the database table record. Okay, you take each field, and similarly when you retrieve, as a developer, it is your responsibility to retrieve each record and fetch each field from that, and you create an object. So you write the code for all these things. But when you use Hibernate framework, your job is easy. You just give the object, and the Hibernate framework saves it, splits it into multiple fields or columns, and stores it into the underlying DB table. Similarly, when you want to retrieve, you need not worry about the database table, the individual columns and all that. Automatically the record is being retrieved. Maybe one or multiple records are being retrieved, and it is available as an object for you. So that as a developer, you need to focus only on the business logic and not writing the data into the database and retrieving it and writing extra code. So with this, at least 20 to 25% of the code is saved. Okay, say for example, let us assume you are developing a small application and it is 1,000 lines of code. So easily you can save 20%, that is 200 lines of code. Okay, right. So that is about Hibernate. See, if you come to Spring, see, Hibernate has a specific purpose. It is used only for the interaction of the database. But if you come to Spring, Spring is a general purpose framework. It is called framework of frameworks. The reason is it is very vast, and it acts as a framework to which you can embed other frameworks like Hibernate or whichever. Okay, right. So one more popularly used framework is Struts framework that has a specific purpose, which is MVC framework. Okay, So now we have some understanding on what is a framework. Now, diagrammatically, let us see how the application which is developed by the developer interacts with the framework, any framework. Let us take Spring as an example. See, as we see here, the light blue color, this one is basically the framework. Basically, the framework is nothing but it's a combination of huge source code, that classes which is being pre-coded and ready to be used for by the developer. So if you are writing any application, like for example, let us assume you are trying to use Spring or maybe Hibernate, whichever. So as an application developer, you include the framework using the .jar files, and from the application you interact with the framework, and obviously from the framework, from the application, you can also use the Java. Okay, right. So this diagram shows how our application interacts with the framework and with the Java. Okay, fine. Next is why we need to use a framework. See, since we started with this course, we have seen a few names of the frameworks. One is Hibernate, one is Struts, and the other is Spring. So the first and foremost question is why I need to use a framework. So is it compulsory to use a framework? Can I develop an application without framework? Yes, you can develop an application, but there are some disadvantages of not using the framework. So what are the advantages of using a framework? See, though the developers need to invest some time in learning and getting expertise on frameworks, there are some advantages. Not some, there are many advantages. The first and foremost advantage is the application development is very fast. See, as I was telling you, if you use Hibernate framework, the size of your source code easily reduces to by 20 to 25%. So that part of the code you need not write, you need not test it, you need not debug it. So that is the, so basically in your project budget, nearly the 25% of the time is saved. The budget is saved. So you can release the products very fast. So what I'm trying to emphasize is application development is faster, and obviously the faster time to market. It is released fast and it reaches the market fast. These are the advantage. And when you don't do the routine things, definitely since you are writing less code, you will have a smaller code which is more maintainable and modular, whichever. Fine. So all these are the advantages. Next, you only need to develop the required business logic or the business use cases, and all the required routine code may be provided by the framework. See, you need to, let us assume you are developing a e-commerce application using Spring and Hibernate. Then as a developer, you need to focus only on the e-commerce business logic. Like for example, adding a new product, checking out the product. And as a seller, you want to add a new product. You need to focus only on that. You need not worry on the unnecessary things like how to interact with the database, how to insert each record, etc., etc. You need to focus only on your business logic. So thereby it results in a better quality. And one more thing is, since you will be using these standardized frameworks in the industry, your product is in line with the industry standards. See, as I was telling you, Hibernate framework has a specific purpose, which we call as a ORM framework. It is used for interaction with the database. Similarly, Struts has a specific purpose. It is MVC frameworks. It is used to develop the web pages, right? But Spring is called a general purpose framework. We also refer it as a framework of frameworks. The reason is, to the Spring framework, you can attach other frameworks such as Hibernate, and you can use collectively. Thank you.